it sounds like the like customer service and that the white glove service, as you described it, has been the centerpiece, a centerpiece of Brooks Brothers' approach for 200 years. And now what you're doing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like what you're doing is translating that into a multi-channel or multiple or omni-channel approach.
That's exactly right. And I think that manifests itself in many different ways. So first and foremost, it requires that we have a consistent customer experience across channels. And that doesn't apply just to personalization, but it really applies in general, where every company now needs to break down the silos between channels. Because, I think traditionally retailers have thought in channels, and they've been organized in channels and had separate business units for online versus brick and mortar versus factory. And what is very evident is that the customer doesn't see it that way. The customer doesn't think in channels. They think of it as Brooks Brothers. Most importantly, I think people are really looking at retailers and companies that are easy to do business with. It has to be simple. It has to be intuitive. You can't have a very complex navigation on your website. You can't have extremely long and tedious checkout process, because we've all been to those websites and lost motivation to complete the checkout. If it's not simple and you're not easy to do business with, and you don't have a supply chain that can fulfill in a fashion that is going to give people the product they want when they want it, then you're really going to be at a big disadvantage, and people are really going to go to another site where it's easier to do business.
How do you maintain that customer experience, especially going across multiple channels?
But the reality of the world we live in now is that it's just not like it used to be, in that now we travel more. It's we may want to go to the store, not in our hometown, but where we work, or we might be on business at a conference and we might want to go to a store. And so, what we've really been working very hard on for the last couple of years is trying to figure out, so if John Smith comes into a store and he's never been into that store before, but he's been a customer for 10 years, we are missing the mark if we don't give him personalized service based on the information we already know about him. We will have turned data that we have into actual actionable insights that you, the store associate, can use to really have a more personalized conversation, as opposed to talking to everyone who walks into the store that you don't know about the same 5 products in the fall collection. So that's a very important piece of who we are. And, obviously replicating that is, requires a lot of, translation of this data into insights. And, everyone talks about big data. Everyone talks about these buzzwords of, big data and machine learning and so on. But, this is really a case study where it is the differentiator. And, really in all industries, I think can be a differentiator, not just for personalization, but for many different parts of your supply chain and the way that you go to market. And, the way that the machine learning works is we can do that on the fly, and we can do that for, terabytes and terabytes of data, which in the old days, obviously, is just not possible, right? Even if we took everyone's black book, every single store associate's black book from the old days, where they had customer service and all of that done in paper books, that's already a lot of data. And now you multiply it by, everything like your online click stream, right? So every time you go online and you're navigating the website, there's a trail of breadcrumbs that every customer leaves behind in terms of what have they browsed, what have they put in their cart and not bought, how much time have they spent looking at a particular item. And so all of this information, when you aggregate it together and you have a true big data strategy that utilizes some of these next generation tools like machine learning and in-memory databases, then we have the ability to really replicate that service. And now you can also make that available online, and we can make more thoughtful recommendations for you online, as opposed to the showing everyone the same 5 products that have just come out as things that they might be interested in.
Now, can you talk about the relationship between service, engagement, customer experience, this machine learning project, because it's all part of a broader perspective,
Absolutely.
so to speak, that you have?
So, I think, again, customers don't think in channels, right? And so regardless of what channel they're interacting with you on, they expect that so if I went onto the website and made a purchase, and then I come into a store 2 weeks later, and you don't have any information on my order, or you don't have any information on the fact that that's even in my wardrobe, then you're missing the mark. So what we really, one of the first things that we did a couple of years ago was, really work on creating this 360-degree view of the customer, which, sounds, fairly obvious, and it sounds fairly intuitive, but, the reality is that very few people have that all in one place, because over time, it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. I mean, obviously, the longer you've been in business, you're likely to have more silos of data. But even if you haven't been in business for, decades, and you've only been in business a few years, nobody has just one sales system, right? You always, at a very minimum, have a point of sale system, and then you have a website. And then you need some kind of system for your customer service. You may need some kind of system for your store associate, be it clienteling or looking at alterations or made to measure, or whatever the case may be. So what we tried to do is, all of those systems that I named were one or more different databases when we started. And what we've worked to do is really bring all of this into a single database. And that single database now has John Smith's customer record. It has all of his preferences. It has his e-commerce transactions. It has his in-store purchases. It has his alterations and made-to-measure information. And it also has any interaction that he's had with our call center is all logged in one central place. So what that allows us to do is obviously elevate the level of service that we can provide, because regardless, again, of what channel is your preference to interact with us on any given day, we will be able to have a consistent view of who you are as a customer, and therefore we'll be able to better service whatever needs you have on that particular day. And they won't be, these handoffs, or let me transfer you to the store that you placed the order at. Let me transfer you to the call center or the, e-commerce fulfillment team to look at where your order is in the fulfillment process. It really needs to be, again, simple, right? If it's not simple and intuitive, people are going to, get frustrated and go elsewhere.
We have another question from Twitter, and this is from Arsalan Khan, who's wondering, as the technologies change and as the environment around you, the customer environment, the competitive environment is changing, how do you plan? How do you go forward and consider this ongoing change in your business strategy?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that it was asked, because one of the things we really haven't touched on so far is the need for a strong, what I call, digital core, right? What that really entails is, do you have a strong supply chain that can allow you to fulfill orders anytime, anywhere? That's really the bottom line, right? Our customers want their stuff. They don't care where it's being shipped from. They don't care how it's being shipped. As long as you can honor your commitment to get that particular merchandise to the customer on the day and date that it's promised, then you're meeting the customer expectations. So that's obviously very difficult. And when we talk about omni-channel, right, we talked about 360-degree view of the customer, but another extremely important piece that we touched on very briefly was the silos across channels coming down. And as those silos come down, this digital core becomes more and more important, because in the old days, it was fine for you to have a website, and the website only having inventory to your e-com warehouse, merchandise. But now you really need to make sure that you have, it's almost another 360-degree view. It's a 360-degree view of product and inventory, and looking at that across all of your channels. So, there's obviously tools that allow you to, to allocate product and to come up with these assortments. But there's always need to be times where someone comes in and we don't have that product. And how do we get you that product? We have 50 of those units in the warehouse that are available for e-com orders. But it's a shame if that inventory is not available to in the store, or vice versa. So, that digital core is this is a very, kind of a long-winded response to the question, but it's very important context, I think, that needs to be provided, because if you don't have that supply chain that's dynamic and nimble, and you as a company are unable to really, react truly dynamically and real time to customer demand, then you've missed the mark.